Well, now we move on to some more depressing, but hardly surprising news. Well, one person isn't surprising. One person I think kind of is, but I think there's some rationale here for it. And that is that Patty Jenkins and Kevin Feige's Star Wars movies both have seemingly been shelved. Those two separate projects now have been shelved over at Lucasfilm. And I'm just going, well, the Patty Jenkins thing, I feel like we talked about Rogue Squadron not too long ago. Or at least at that stage when we first talked about it, it was Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron has been delayed, but it could still possibly happen. Yeah, sure. And Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy is totally still happening, guys. Don't worry about it. Okay. But no, that seems like it's been shelved. And Kevin Feige's Star Wars project that he was producing has also seemingly been shelved. I'm more surprised with the Kevin Feige thing, but at the same time, I'm not. And here's why. I think Kevin Feige realizes that his talents are being stretched too thin, and he needs to put all of his attention back on Marvel and focus, especially after how Phase 4 was received, especially how Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is being received. I think he's getting a kind of a rude wake-up call of, no, you can't put the car in cruise control anymore. You got to put the hands on the wheel and actually pay attention while you're driving. You're in a rough part of town right now. So I think he might need to fully divert his attention, but also both of these projects, I never fully got invested in just because Lucasfilm's been canceling projects left, right, and center. So until we actually got concrete news on it, I didn't believe either were actually happening. Now, people are all up in arms because supposedly the Taika Waititi directed Star Wars movie is still moving forward with a target of December 2025, and people are surprised / mad about this, but apparently Taika Waititi is probably going to cast himself in the movie, to which I'm just going, well, y'all, yeah, he does that for every movie. But here's the thing. People just reading the headlines of Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie still happening, looking to cast himself, seem to think that Taika is going to cast himself in a prominent position.
Yeah.
Every single Taika Waititi movie that he is in is like a cameo role. I think the biggest bit part that he was ever in was What We Do in the Shadows. And even then, that's like a balance of everyone else. But
well, I could make the argument though. I mean, I'm supporting your argument here, but like Jojo Rabbit, he is technically a main character.
He is, but he's not the main character. And you could also make the case that he's not actually a character if you want to go down that path. That's a whole that's a whole separate, like Taika. It's not like a Clint Eastwood directing himself as the lead actor.
Yeah.
Taika Waititi does himself as bit parts. Great bit parts. Always kind of the same type of bit part. But I don't think that's anything to make a big deal out of. I don't think that movie, though, is coming out in 2025 at all. No, it just seems like, considering that they're still working on it, that's going to be delayed. My last thought on this before we move on to other Star Wars related things and the timing of this is people are just so upset that this is the one that's staying. They're just like, Patty Jenkins' movies get scrapped and Kevin Feige's movie gets scrapped, but the guy that did Thor, Love and Thunder still gets a Star Wars movie. And going, guys, very few people hate Thor, Love and Thunder as much as I do. It is my least favorite movie in the MCU by a wide margin. That being said, I still want a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie, and here's why. Everybody has a bad day at the office, and I hate this fan mentality of what have you done for me lately. Just because his last movie was terrible doesn't mean he doesn't have other good stuff in his repertoire. Like Josh brought up, Jojo Rabbit is great. Y'all love Thor Ragnarok. You just seem to forget about that after Love and Thunder. Or Hunt for the Wilder People is supremely underrated.
So good.
What We Do in the Shadows is still one of my favorite comedies of all time. I just think Taika Waititi had too much creative freedom on this one, and he was trying to go way too much on something. He's still a talented director. Now, getting back to the Lucasfilm news at hand here. I don't think Lucasfilm wanted this news to come out now. And here's why. Star Wars Celebration is at the beginning of next month. And I think there's going to be this like question in the air of going, well, we don't really have anything coming, do we? Like now the pressure's on for Celebration of, okay, you've got to announce stuff. What is your game plan here? Do you have a game plan? And right now, I don't know if Star Wars does have a game plan. I could be wrong. For all we know, they could march Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau out on the stage of Celebration saying, "We taking over, guys! NWO is here. They're gonna take over the world of Star Wars permanently. Movies and TV will now be a crossover thing, just like the MCU, just like the DCU is doing. And we're gonna have Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau head everything up." I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I think this could also be them just scrapping any Kathleen Kennedy projects and then starting fresh over when, she leaves before the end of the year. I'm still putting that on record, but
Yeah.
we have 2 more Star Wars projects that have been shelved. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah. I think both of us are not surprised at all about the Patty Jenkins one. The Kevin Feige one, I think, makes sense. You can't. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, Kevin, your Phase 4 has not been well received. It's kind of hard to point. I mean, it is easy to point fingers, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint certain things. Which, side note on the Taika thing, it's interesting that just because Thor: Love and Thunder was bad, we blame Taika, but we don't do that with any of the other directors for the other movies. So, it's not like I came to Sam Raimi and was like, "Yo, like, what happened, dude? Like, Multiverse was really bad. Like, what was that?" So it's just interesting
but fans definitely did to Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman 1984, but now they're back on her side because she got a Star Wars. It's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. But no, the Kevin Feige thing makes a lot of sense, I think. They need to get a handle on what's going on because I think maybe you shared it on Twitter or I saw it or something like that, but there was an article floating around about how there's no such thing as comic book movie fatigue. It is only when you make really bad comic book movies that you start to get nervous. Fatigue is not a thing. We want to see good movies. And honestly, Phase 4 had some pretty good stuff, but it's interesting that that what is considered good will change from person to person. I mean, I know people that love She-Hulk, and I couldn't watch more than 2 episodes of it. So they're not making content for everyone now, I think, and that's also okay. But at the same time, your movies are not doing well, and if you're going to continue with this universe that you've got planned, then yeah, you might want to slow down, pump the brekes, pull over to the road, take a piss, get everything,
change your tire.
Yeah, get recalibrated here because going to the gas station, get yourself a Monster, and then get back on the road and get going. Because I think that I'm not going to be one of those doomsayers. I'm not going to be one of those people that are like, "Oh, Marvel's in a lot of trouble," but at the same time, I think after the movies of Phase 4, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel's in a lot of they're heading in the direction of actually having some pretty big issues. But that being said, I think all that to just say, to me, the Kevin Feige thing makes sense. Absolutely, he can't dive into something that is as complex and narratively tough as the multiverse and just get to go hop over here and do a Star Wars movie. Unfortunately, you can't do that. Twitter's always has been my thing for oh, that's a good point. Yeah. It's Kevin's really, unfortunately, but doing a multiverse thing is complicated because you can go anywhere and see anybody, but you can also go anywhere and see anybody.
Yeah.
At any time. So it starts to make death feel less permanent than it already feels in the universe. But yeah, no, the Patty Jenkins and Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie is getting scrapped. It makes sense. I'm not surprised by it. I'm trying to remember, and maybe you can remind me here, of what Star Wars actually has coming out here soon, because Mandalorian's happening,
Only thing that
Ahsoka's
I
coming
know,
out soon.
only thing I know is TV stuff. Nothing
Yeah.
movie related, because you had that. The one that's really falling by the wayside is that John Watts Star Wars thing with Jude Law, of like with a whole bunch of like, it was supposed to be like a kid show or whatever. That's supposedly
Oh.
coming out. You got Ahsoka, you've got the Acolyte, but these are all Disney Plus shows, and I think ever since Rise of Skywalker, I think Disney had expansive plans for stories and adventures post Rise of Skywalker and post the
Hmm.
sequel trilogy, and then the sequel trilogy actually happened without a proper plan. They just go, well, balls. Now what do we do? And I think ever since Rise of Skywalker, they've just been like, well, crap. Um, what do we do now? And I think they've finally come to the realization of, okay, scrap everything, start small, start simple, start over. And I think that's essentially what they're doing here with the TV. But well, we're not going to delve too much into spoilers for Mando, but I think Filoni and Favreau have a plan that's just going to start on the small screen first. But
Hmm.
there's a certain blue antagonist to Star Wars that I can see being an overriding threat to multiple shows, and I could see Filoni and
Yes.
Favreau kind of, I don't want to say retconning the events of the sequel trilogy, but giving fans kind of what they're hoping for with the sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
of characters that they're familiar with, tone that they're familiar with, and just more familiarity. Not retreading things or just recycling old characters, but something that's closer in the spirit of the Star Wars that people know and love. Something closer to Force Awakens. We all want to bash on the sequel trilogy as a whole now,
Hmm.
but not enough people give Force Awakens credit, because Force Awakens is still good and still holds up. It's the rest of the trilogy that completely crumbles and falls. I think Lucasfilm has just come to the realization of, okay, we gotta stop announcing crap. We need to formulate a plan and figure out, we need to just back burner the movies for a while, figure out what we're doing with TV, and just makes me really curious what we're gonna get at Star Wars Celebration this year, because like D23 last year, you better announce
Yes.
something or you're in
Yeah.
big, big trouble.